The Memphis Grizzlies season has come to an end. Well, not officially at the time of this recording anyway, maybe by the time you're watching this video, but with the Grizzlies down 0-3 to the Thunder, Ja Morant not being able to play for Game 4, which is shortly underway, so yes, you can say the season is all but over. Despite eking their way into the postseason via the play-in, when it had initially looked like they were going to miss the playoffs entirely, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter, because they subsequently would get beaten down by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I give the Thunder credit because they are playing insanely good basketball right now. To be honest, I don't see how anyone is going to stop this team in a 7-game series with how elite they are on both ends of the floor. But for the Grizzlies, this really was a microcosm of their season, which started out very promising after taking a gap year with all the injuries from last season, a team that appeared to be right back in the running to contend for a title at the top of the Western Conference until everything fell apart, their defense seemingly falling off, miscommunication, poor execution on offense. They would fire their longtime head coach, who had been in the role since 2019, mere weeks before the start of the postseason, and they would ultimately fall to 8th in the West and be non-competitive in a playoff series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the question we have to ask now is this Grizzlies team, what was once one of the youngest and promising teams in the league just a few seasons ago, does this team have what it takes to truly get to the next level and compete for a title? And is Ja Morant the right guy to lead them there? Well, let's talk about it. Of course, as always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribe to help the channel grow, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies as a franchise have gone through their fair share of ups and downs since its inception in the 90s, from starting out in Vancouver and being one of the worst teams in the league to relocating to Memphis, making it to the playoffs for the first time, then back to being the doormat, then having the tough, physical, no-nonsense Grizzlies team that actually made some deep playoff runs, then back to being a bottom feeder, to now where we are today. But throughout all of that, the Grizzlies in their 30 years of existence have never made it out of the West and have gone to the conference finals just one time, where they got swept by the San Antonio Spurs. And so when the Grizzlies hit the jackpot in the 2019 draft lottery by moving up to the number 2 pick despite having a pre-draft lottery positioning of 8th, to move up 6 spots in a top 2 heavy draft class was seemingly going to turn their fortunes around by landing a generational talent. At the time, everyone knew Zion was going to go number 1 and Ja Morant was going to go number 2. Ja, the moment he was drafted, was going to be the new face of the franchise. Ja Morant was going to be the guy to bring this team back to relevance. And right away, you knew Ja was going to be special. Kid wins Rookie of the Year, has one of the better rookie seasons we've seen in a while, continues to get better and better before breaking out into an all-star, and the Grizzlies are back on the map by 2022 and finished first in their division and second in the Western Conference, doing all of this despite being one of the younger teams in the league and led by a 22-year-old superstar. The Grizzlies were a team with one of the brightest futures in the NBA, and yet here we are 3 years later, and not much progress has been made. In fact, if anything, you could say they've regressed. Now, yes, some of that is due to injuries, especially when you talk about last season, and of course losing Dillon Brooks, one of their main enforcers and key perimeter defenders, by letting him walk in free agency. That obviously didn't help, but the core they had back then from 2022 of Ja, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, they're still there. Now, don't get me wrong, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. are incredible players, especially for a player like Bane who far exceeded expectations relative to where he was drafted with the last pick in the first round. But this is Ja Morant's team. He's the superstar. He's the face of the franchise. He's got to be better to really take this team to the next level. But here's the thing. The Grizzlies may not know it, or at least they will never admit to it, but Ja Morant probably isn't that guy. He's not that guy that is going to win you a championship as your number 1 option or your best player. And as much as some will say that's a hot take and recency bias based on how things went down this season for the Grizzlies, it's actually not, and here's why. Because look, no one is denying that Ja Morant is an insanely gifted athlete. He's a phenomenal player, he's an all-star, but when you peel things back a bit and take an in-depth look at the level of impact Ja Morant has on the court, it actually paints a very different picture of the viability of him being the guy that you want to build your franchise around. I'm a big numbers guy. If you've been following the channel for some time, you already know that. And yes, maybe sometimes I pay a little too close to the numbers to a fault, when in reality, sometimes stats/data can be misleading if not interpreted properly or taken out of context. But one thing I always look at when I'm trying to assess a player's impact on the court is their on-off numbers. How good is the team when they're on the court versus when the player is off? How much are they contributing to winning? Now, this can also be misleading if you're playing for a bad team overall. You can be a great player, a big impact player, but if your team sucks, well, your overall on-off rating, your box plus minus, your net rating isn't going to be great. And in Ja's first couple years in the league when the Grizzlies weren't a good team, that was to be expected. What's unexpected, however, and should be a cause for concern if you're the Grizzlies, in their breakout year, where they won 56 games, tied for most in franchise history, Ja's on-off rating was minus 1.7 per 100 possessions. Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, even Steven Adams all had higher on-court ratings than Ja Morant did and were more efficient on both ends of the floor in leading to winning. Now, this season, Ja has been in the positive territory at plus 2.0, but he doesn't lead the team in that category. He's 4th in overall box plus minus for his team, 4th in value over a replacement player, and Ja, throughout his career, has never led his team in overall win shares on a season. Now, to be fair, win shares are an accumulation of an individual's impact towards winning, and the more games you play, the more your team wins, the higher your win shares are going to be. And of course, Ja really, throughout his career, hasn't been fully healthy for a whole season, whether it be through injuries or other off-court issues, which is a whole other topic which I won't go into, but is a factor when you're assessing whether this is your guy, your franchise player. But regardless, we always say availability is the best ability in this league. Whether you can control it or not, the fact of the matter is being available consistently to leading your team is important. The other thing that has to be a growing concern if you're the Grizzlies front office is how much Ja shoots his team out of games and how you're not seeing any progress on that jump shot over the course of his career, something that is so critical to have in today's NBA, to be able to shoot it from deep. Like, it's one thing to be an average shooter or even slightly below average, but to consistently be around 30% as a three-point shooter for your career, and doing so in relatively high volume, isn't going to be sustainable over time. Yes, the Grizzlies have Bane, who has been a great counter to Ja's lack of shooting, but it's not enough when it comes to the playoffs. And most importantly, Ja's defense, especially in the playoffs, gets massively exposed as a big liability on that end of the floor. I mean, like I mentioned, the Thunder are an insanely good team, but they were targeting Ja on offense and going at him knowing they could get whatever they wanted. Not saying it's all on Ja, as the whole team needs to be better on that end of the floor, but Ja Morant, being a leader of this team, did not set the tone when it comes to his overall effort on defense. And so look, the way I look at it is this. Ja Morant is almost 26. He's going to be 26 by the start of next season. He's been with the franchise for 6 years now, and the Grizzlies really haven't made any progress since it looked like they were starting to break out as this next team to run the Western Conference in 2022. And if you're looking at your roster up and down and seeing what moves can be made on the margins, it's actually few and far between. Because they traded away a fair amount of draft capital. They traded a first-round pick to get Marcus Smart, and then another first-round pick just to get his contract off the books, and most of their second-round picks to other teams. And they have a lot of money committed on their books, primarily between the contracts of Ja and Desmond Bane. And Jaren Jackson Jr. is up for a contract extension, which you're gonna need to extend him if you don't want to potentially lose him for nothing in free agency in the summer of 2026. And so outside of the Grizzlies adding another star-level player to their roster, which they really can't do because they don't have the assets to be able to get a deal like that done, outside of that, they're looking at a team that is good, but not good enough to take them all the way. And rather than continuing to kick the can down the road and potentially wasting Ja Morant's prime years and prime value on the trade market, maybe, just maybe, it makes sense to start shopping your best player and start a new chapter in Grizzlies basketball, because I really don't see this team going anywhere outside of being a first-round exit, maybe a second-round exit at best. Cut your losses while you can. No, people aren't going to think this is a Nico Harrison level trade of Luka Doncic when the guy just took your team to the finals last season. If you feel you don't think you can win with Ja being the guy, then now is the best time to move on from him before it's too late. That's just my take. That's just my take, though. I would love to hear what you guys think. You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.